All right, let's dive in and demystify DeFi, which stands for decentralized finance. We're going to use some really simple analogies. Think of town fairs and fruit stalls to break down all the jargon. By the end of this, you'll see exactly how all the pieces fit together. Let's do it.
Okay, before we get into the good stuff, we have to do the mandatory disclaimer. Nothing in this explainer is financial advice. This is all just for educational and hopefully entertainment purposes.
So, let's kick things off with a big question. Imagine for a second that finance wasn't some locked-up bank vault that you need special permission just to peek inside. What if it was more like an open toolbox, just sitting there, ready for anyone to pick up and build something cool? That, right there, is the core idea we're going to explore.
To really get a handle on this, I want you to imagine we're taking a trip together to a big, bustling town fair. This little analogy is going to be our guide for this first part of our journey.
So at its heart, DeFi is just a financial system that runs on public code instead of inside a private company. At our town fair, right, anyone can set up a stall, and all the rules of the fair are just pinned to a big board for everyone to see. In DeFi, those pinned rules are what we call smart contracts. And every single thing that happens, every transaction, gets written down in a shared public notebook that everyone can see. We call that the blockchain.
And this slide, this is where you see the huge difference. Traditional finance, it runs on company promises. You have to trust their terms of service, their employees, their systems. But DeFi, it runs on code promises. The rules are written in code, and if you meet the conditions, the code just runs. It's a massive shift from trusting people to trusting math that anyone can check. Oh, and a big one. There are no password resets. You lose your keys, you lose your funds. It's all on you.
Okay, so if we're wandering around this fair, how do we get things done? Well, you can think of every transaction you make as a car trying to drive on a public road. And to use that road, you've got to pay a small toll. In the crypto world, that toll is called a gas fee. And it makes sense, right? When the road gets super crowded with traffic, the toll goes up. When it's late at night and the road is empty, the toll goes way down. It's as simple as that.
All right, now let's head over to the most popular stall at our entire fair, the marketplace. This is where most people get their start in DeFi, by swapping one kind of token for another. And this happens on something called a decentralized exchange, or a DEX for short.
So you might be wondering, how does a DEX set prices if there's no company in the middle calling the shots? Well, it uses this clever little thing, kind of like a pricing robot, called an automated market maker, or AMM. Just picture two big barrels. One is full of apples, the other is full of oranges. When you come along and take a bunch of oranges out of the barrel, what happens? Well, there are fewer oranges left. They just became scarcer, which makes them more expensive compared to the apples. The best part is, it's all just math. It updates the price instantly, no humans needed.
But wait, where did those apples and oranges even come from? They come from people we call liquidity providers. These folks put both tokens into the barrels so that other people can trade. In return, they get a small fee from every single swap. But there's a catch, and it's a big one. They take on a really unique risk called impermanent loss. It's basically the trade-off they make for earning all those fees.
And this table here makes it super clear. Let's say you just held your tokens. One of them doubles in price. Your total value would be $1,500. Awesome. But if you had put them in the barrels, provided liquidity, that little pricing robot would have automatically sold some of your winning token as its price was going up. You'd still make a profit, for sure, but your total value would be less than that $1,500. That difference, that gap, that's impermanent loss.
Okay, so we've swapped some tokens at the marketplace, but DeFi is way more than that. Let's check out how you can actually move your assets between different towns and even use them for stuff that looks a lot like banking.
First up, bridges. Think of a bridge as the airport transfer of the crypto world. It's how you move your tokens from one blockchain network to another. The process is pretty straightforward. Your original tokens get locked up on the network you're leaving, and then a new wrapped version, basically a claim ticket, gets created for you on the network you're going to. When you want to go back, the whole thing just happens in reverse.
Now, let's talk about lending. A great way to think about DeFi lending is to imagine a town library. You can walk in and deposit one of your books, your crypto assets, as collateral. And because you've contributed to the library's collection, you're now allowed to borrow a different book, which is like taking out a loan against your deposit.
So, when you borrow, there is one number that is absolutely crucial to watch: your health factor. This is your safety meter. As long as it stays comfortably above 1, your collateral is totally safe. But if it drops below 1, Uh-oh. Parts of your collateral can be automatically sold off to repay your loan. That's called a liquidation, and trust me, it's something you really want to avoid by not borrowing too close to your limit.
All right, let's be honest. One of the biggest reasons people are drawn to DeFi is the chance to earn yield. But you have to know that not all yield is created equal. It's super important to understand where it's actually coming from.
So you've basically got three main flavors of earning. First, there's network staking. That's kind of like getting paid to be a guard for the town, helping keep the whole network secure. Second, liquidity mining, which is where you earn trading fees plus some bonus rewards for putting your tokens in those barrels at the DEX. And third, you have protocol fee sharing, which is where you get a direct cut of the fees that an application makes from people actually using it.
And you are going to see these two acronyms everywhere, APR and APY. Here's the deal. APR is the simple, honest baseline interest rate. APY, on the other hand, is what you'd get if you perfectly reinvested your earnings over and over again. APY almost always looks way higher and more attractive, but it's making some huge assumptions, like assuming the price of the reward token you're earning will never, ever go down, which, let's be real, it often does.
We've had a great tour of the fair. We've seen all the cool attractions. And now, we've reached what is probably the most important part of the entire trip, your traveler's safety guide. Because this space, it has incredible tools, but it's also full of pickpockets and traps you need to know about. So here's a quick rundown of what to watch out for. Fake websites that look exactly like the real thing. Sneaky contracts that ask for permission to spend all of your tokens. These things called honeypots, which are tokens you can buy but mysteriously can never sell. And of course, the oldest trick in the book, people sliding into your DMs pretending to be from a support team. Here's a golden rule. No legitimate support team will ever DM you first, period.
So how do you actually stay safe? You just develop a simple, consistent rhythm. Always double-check the URL before you connect your wallet. When you're trying something new, always send a tiny test amount first. For any amount of money that you'd be sad to lose, use a hardware wallet. And most importantly, write down your seed phrase on a piece of paper and keep it somewhere safe offline. Never, ever type it into a computer or take a picture of it.
And I want you to let this quote really sink in, because it might be the single best piece of advice for this entire space. If you feel that sense of urgency, if someone is rushing you or creating FOMO, it is not a real opportunity. It's bait. Real, solid opportunities don't need to create a panic.
And that's pretty much it. You now speak DeFi. You get the basics of swaps, liquidity, bridges, lending, and most importantly, the risks. The key from here is to just start slow. Start with tiny amounts that you would be totally fine with losing. And above all else, stay curious.
And hey, one last time for good measure, please remember that none of this was financial advice. We really hope this educational tour has helped you understand this new world of finance just a little bit better. Thanks for joining me.